This is Magic and Metal, an urban fantasy serial by Rebecca Riles, read for you by text-to-speech technology. In this monthly serial audiobook podcast, I'll read a beta version of each chapter for you. If you love urban fantasy detective stories, then Magic and Metal is the podcast for you. Chapter 5. 5 years of wanting this detective's badge, and the second Driscoll pinned it on me, its weight tipped me off balance over an abyss filled with family secrets and bureaucratic traps. The precinct buzzed around me, but everything felt slow and strange, like being caught in the eye of a storm. The hum of conversations, the taps on AR controls, the flicker of holographic displays all blended into the background rumble of a summer storm. Stale coffee and cheaper desperation filled the air, a fitting backdrop for my first official act as a member of the Supernatural Crimes Task Force. I strode down the hallway to the elevator to meet Detective Davies down in the dungeon. The elevator descended, each floor ticking by like a countdown to my first real test as a detective. The pit in my stomach grew with each passing second. The doors opened, revealing the stark, clinical atmosphere of the booking area. I stepped out with a confidence I didn't feel. Davies leaned against a desk, her posture relaxed, but her eyes sharp, like a hawk sizing up a rabbit. Her gaze locked onto mine, and I could see the challenge there, daring me to step up. "I remember the first time you dragged me down here," she said, nodding toward the rows of cells, each buzzing with a faint energy field that stifled any magical abilities. "Ready to see where the magic happens?" she laughed, echoing my own words from her rookie days. "Then you found out I was already familiar with magical fields," she added, her eyes scanning the space with a hint of familiarity, born from her unconventional mage upbringing. Her reply from back then hit me like a punch. "Where we make a difference, even if it's in a place that looks like it eats souls for breakfast." I forced a smirk, burying the unease that those cells stirred in me. I couldn't let her see how much they rattled me like a rookie on my first trip to the dungeon. We slogged through the maze of hallways, each step like trudging through mud. The walls closed in, the air thick and choking. The anti-magic fields clashed, shoving against my dragon, like waves battering a boat. My senses went haywire. Every whiff of fear, every taste of despair, every muffled sob from the cells gnawed at my nerves. It was a jungle, each corner hiding a predator ready to strike. I clenched my fists, keeping my face cool, masking the storm inside. I relaxed my jaw and smoothed the muscles between my brows, resetting my expression to neutral. Davies glanced at me, a flicker of concern crossing her face before being quickly replaced by her usual professional mask. We stepped into the processing area, and there he was, the magic user from earlier, looking like life had sucker-punched him. Middle-aged, clothes disheveled, and an air of defeat hanging around him like a bad smell. "All right," Davies said, her voice all business. "Let's get this over with. Name?" The guy looked up, eyes dull and lifeless. "Marcus Theophilus Thorne." I watched the AI record his details, ready to edit the official record manually if needed. The routine was a small, welcome distraction. "State your occupation," I said, careful to not accidentally trigger my magic by asking questions. I was a healer," Marcus murmured, his voice barely a whisper. Davies raised an eyebrow, her voice cool and unyielding. "Unlicensed, right?" Marcus nodded, and Davies' gaze softened for a moment, betraying an internal conflict I knew she struggled with. Sympathy for the desperate, but the unwavering necessity of the law. Marcus's eyes locked onto mine, a flicker of recognition sparking there. Not me, exactly, but my name and its weight or the connection to my Uncle Oz. Dragon, business owner, someone who could pull strings both in the underworld and in legitimate circles. My pulse raced, a bead of sweat tracing a slow path down my temple. "Please," he whispered, his voice breathy. "I was just trying to help people, not be at the mercy of a heartless mage." Davies' eyes narrowed, her tone steely. "The law is in place for a reason, and you made your choices." "Just another perp with a sob story," I muttered, playing my part, but the words tasted like ash. "He broke the law." Davies nodded, then added, "I've read about people like you, with healing gifts. They often face tough choices when systems fail them, but the law's the law. Exactly. Now, Mr. Thorne, we need to document any magical abilities. Care to elaborate on your healing practices? Marcus's shoulders sagged further. I have a gift. I can sense illness, injuries, and I can encourage the body to heal faster. But the licensing fees, the regulations, I couldn't afford it, and people needed help. Davies sighed, her eyes flickering with something I couldn't place. The regulations are a nightmare, she said quietly. I've seen good people get caught in that web. Nightmare? She had no idea. Those regs were chains that kept us muzzled and dancing for the mages. Davies would never know what it meant to be branded a threat just for existing. My chest tightened. Memories of hiding my abilities from her flashed by. I clenched my fists, power itching to break free. With a slow exhale, I reeled it back in, forcing my focus to stay sharp. Not her fault. She had a screwed-up childhood. So, any formal magical training? Davies asked, her tone sharp and direct, much like her gaze that didn't miss a thing. Marcus shook his head. Self-taught. My grandmother, she had the gift too. Taught me what she could before she passed. Davies sighed, a hint of frustration, but also a touch of empathy in her voice. Mr. Thorne, you know practicing magic without a license is a serious offense, right? The law doesn't bend, no matter the intentions. I know, Marcus whispered, his voice cracking, but you don't understand. The people I helped, they had nowhere else to go. The licensed healers, they're too expensive, too few. What was I supposed to do? Let them suffer? His words hit like a gut punch, sparking something raw inside me. I kept my face a blank slate, buried the storm brewing beneath the surface. Davies couldn't see the wildfire raging in my head. The law doesn't give a damn about your good intentions, Thorne, I drawled, keeping my voice as steady as a rock in a river. It's there to keep people safe. Protect them from what? Marcus asked, a sudden fire in his eyes. From getting the help they need? From living without pain? Davies stepped forward, her tone firm but measured, a blend of authority and understanding. All right, Mr. Thorne, let's stick to the task at hand. We're here to process you, not to debate policy. I glanced back at Marcus, my expression as blank as a poker face. Thorne, time for your magical assessment. Follow me to the scanning room. Marcus hesitated, eyes flicking between Davies and me like a cornered animal. With a trembling hand, Marcus opened the door to the glass scanning room. What's it gonna do? I locked eyes with him, trying to offer a thread of comfort. Just a standard scan to spot any magical signatures. Face the glass. Over before you know it. Marcus stepped up to the glass panel, which shimmered with faint lines. As he approached, the panel glowed with energy. A soft click, and the door locked. The room began to spin slowly, positioning the glass panel between him and the exit. His eyes darted around, and a bead of sweat traced down his temple. He stood there, rigid, like prey, sensing the predator's gaze. Fascinating, Davies muttered, donning her AR glasses to examine the projections. Low-level healing abilities, but there's something else here. Oh, some kind of empathic resonance? I leaned in, my eyes locked on the glass. My pulse drummed a steady beat. If I hit that scanner, it'd sing the same tune. Guess he wasn't lying about his healing touch, I drawled, throwing out a distraction. Davies glanced at the data, her eyebrows knitting together. Empathic resonance isn't something you see every day, she muttered, adjusting her AR glasses. There's an old mage tale about creatures who could heal the spirit as much as the body. I nodded, my thoughts racing. This wasn't just another perp. There was something different about Marcus. Iris's voice crackled in my ear cuff, a blend of sardonic amusement and cold calculation. Marcus has potential. Think of what he could do with a talent like his in the right or wrong hands. Marcus's empathic resonance was no cheap trick. It let him tap into the pain and anguish of his patients, seeing through the bravado and straight to the heart of their suffering. His treatments didn't just stitch up wounds, they healed the soul, making his touch something rare and valuable. But this gift was a double-edged sword. To the right, or wrong, people, Marcus was a goldmine. His ability could manipulate, control, and exploit emotions. Picture a negotiation where he senses every flicker of doubt or betrayal. In the wrong hands, Marcus's talent was a weapon of unmatched power. I knew that play. Oz would make me squeeze the truth out of a human, and then Lark would swoop in, wiping their memory clean like a vulture picking bones. No trace left of me, just another shadow in the dark. The scanner whirled around, and the lock clicked open. Marcus yanked his hand back, nursing it like he'd touched a hot stove. "Is that all?" he muttered, voice barely a whisper. "Almost there, Thorn," I said, flicking my gaze to the virtual display. "Just need your mugshot and fingers, then you're off to your new digs." Davy stepped forward, her tone clinical. "You can handle the rest. I'll get the official report started," she suggested, a subtle nudge asserting her competence. We moved through the motions, his eyes drilling into me, a silent plea I had no intention of answering. I zeroed in on the tasks, shutting out the gnawing discomfort. Marcus jammed his hand into the scanner, each ridge and whorl captured in icy, digital precision. His hands trembled, fear glinting in his eyes. "Hold still," I murmured, my tone cool and steady. "Almost done." It was nearly over for me, but for Marcus, it was just the beginning. Next came the mugshot. Marcus stood against the height chart, camera flash illuminating his weary face. "Look straight," I commanded. He obeyed, eyes drilling into me. The cameras clicked, a final judgment. Marcus's silent pleas never ceased. Each glance was a punch to the gut. I wanted to say something, to offer some comfort, but the badge on my hip was a constant reminder of my duty. Weakness wasn't an option. After what felt like an eternity, the booking process was complete. "Done," I muttered, more to myself than to anyone else. Marcus was led away by a uniformed officer. His last look was a hard, desperate stare. "Detective," he called out, voice barely above a whisper, "I hope you never find yourself on this side of the law." I swallowed hard, watching as he disappeared down the corridor. Marcus has high empathic resonance. Could he tell I'm a dragon? Would he tell for a chance to save himself? A wolf doesn't apologize for being a wolf, but even a wolf knows when it's crossed a line. Davy stayed silent for a moment, watching him go, before she turned to me, her eyes searching mine. "What was that about?" she asked, her voice cutting through my thoughts like a knife. I smirked, leaning back with a casual shrug. "Not bad for your first booking as a detective," I said, my tone dripping with a mix of sarcasm and genuine respect. "You handled that well." Davies rolled her eyes but couldn't hide the small smile tugging at her lips. "Thanks. It's not so different from being a runner, just more responsibility. I'm technically not getting my promotion until I've been on the force for 24 months. You're coming to my party, right?" I smirked, leaning back with a casual shrug. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied, trying to inject some lightness into the atmosphere. "Just make sure there's enough cake." Davies chuckled. "Oh, you have no idea how much cake. Come on, let's head back up. I'm sure Driscoll has plenty more for us to do." As we walked back to the elevator, the silence between Davies and me was thick and loaded, like a coiled snake ready to strike. What we'd done wasn't just hanging in the air. It was a lead weight dragging us down. The elevator doors parted with a soft ding. As we stepped inside, Iris's voice broke the silence like a sharp whistle. "Jax, you've got a visitor upstairs. It's Mara." I stopped dead, one foot poised, to step forward. Davies turned, her gaze sharp and inquisitive, much like a hawk spotting its prey. "Something wrong?" she asked, her tone a blend of genuine concern and professional curiosity, leaving no room for evasive answers. I shook my head, pushing forward with a smirk curling my lips. "Nah, just remembered something pressing upstairs." As the elevator started its climb, thoughts of Mara hit like a freight train. Her timing was as impeccable as a cat's leap, always landing right where it caused the most ruckus. Handling her was going to take all my swagger, and then some. Subscribe at RebeccaRiles.com/join. I hope to see you in the community soon to read the story as I write it. Thank you for listening.